When the hospital lights flickered that night, nobody paid attention except Nurse Amara Cole. She had always trusted her instincts. Ever since the morning she learned the secret meant to die with her mother. Don't ever let anyone see what he left you. Her mother had whispered while blood seeped through her fingers. Amara never asked what he meant. She only kept a small silver locket with the initials DL, hidden deep in her pocket every morning she stepped into Westmore Medical. But she never expected that secret to matter here, until the night everything went wrong. It started with the humiliation. Dr. Leonard Hale pushed open the exam room door with the kind of force that told everyone he imagined himself important. His white coat swung behind him. His jaw was sharp, controlled, cold. He found Amara standing beside the bed of a man whose face was hidden beneath bruises and shadow, his chart unreadable except for one line. Broad and unconscious. No ID. Hale didn't greet her. Didn't even look at the patient. "You're charting incorrectly again, Nurse Cole," he said with the bored cruelty of someone whose insults were as casual as breathing. "Honestly, if you're not capable of basic medical entries, perhaps this isn't the job for—" Amara clenched her jaw. "I followed protocol." His vitals were unstable. "You followed your version of protocol." Hale snapped. He snatched the patient's file from her hands as though touching her contaminated him. "Do you want this hospital associated with your incompetence?" The patient stirred slightly but didn't speak. Hale leaned close, voice low enough for only Amara to hear. "Maybe if you spent less time trying to act like you belong." That was when the patient suddenly opened his eyes. Dark, sharp, watching. Hale didn't notice. He shoved the file back and stormed out, muttering something about filing a complaint. Amara exhaled shakily. She whispered an apology to the patient, who was now studying her with a level gaze she didn't expect. "You shouldn't let him speak to you that way," he murmured. His voice was calm, controlled, almost too steady for someone with injuries that deep. His hand twitched near the sheets, and for the first time, Amara noticed it. Something etched into the skin between his thumb and index finger. A barely visible brand. A symbol. One she had seen once before. Her locket pulsed like it was burning through her pocket. The patient was listed as John Doe, but the staff had started calling him the Ghost because he kept slipping in and out of consciousness with strange mutterings about debts, loyalty, and the kind of promises nobody sane would make. Yet every time Amara entered the room, he snapped awake, watching her as though he knew something she didn't. Hale's complaint about her was filed the next morning. 2 hours later, Amara was told to report to HR, and by noon, the hospital learned that John Doe had vanished from his bed. Security footage showed only a flicker of movement, then static, just like the night the lights had flickered. But what the footage didn't show, what Amara saw, because she was the only one who thought to check the maintenance corridor, was the smear of dark red leading toward the old East Wing. And next to it, something glinting on the ground, a thin silver cufflink engraved with the initials LH. Dr. Leonard Hale. The investigation began before sunset. Police swarmed the halls. Hale pretended to be shocked, offended, disgusted. He performed the role so well that half the staff idolized him for remaining calm. The other half whispered darker things. But Amara knew something they didn't, because when she returned to her locker after her shift was suspended, she found something inside. Her locket. It had been missing for 2 days, and now it was back, except someone had opened it. Something she had never managed to do, and inside was a single piece of folded paper. A number. A room number. East Wing, room 314. The abandoned wing hadn't been used in 15 years. She shouldn't have gone. She told herself it 100 times as her shoes echoed through the forgotten corridor. Paint peeled from walls like dead skin. A cold draft whispered through broken vents. Every step pressed her deeper into the hospital's buried history, one her mother had warned her about without ever explaining why. 314 was cracked open. A single light buzzed inside. And sitting in the center of the room was John Doe. Alive, bandages removed, eyes sharper than before. He smiled when she entered, like he had been expecting her. "You kept the locket," he said. Her heart slammed against her ribs. "Who are you?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he motioned to the corner of the room. There, slumped in a chair, arms tied behind him, mouth taped, was Dr. Leonard Hale, alive, terrified. You did this," she whispered. John Doe, if that was his name, shook his head slowly. "No, we did this." Before she could move, he continued, "You want the truth about your mother, about the man who gave you that locket, about this hospital." His eyes glinted with a knowledge she wasn't ready for. Leonard Hale wasn't humiliating you. He was warning you. He recognized you the moment he saw you. That doesn't make sense. John Doe leaned closer. "Your father built the East Wing. Your father ran things ordinary people never knew existed. And your father trusted only one man to keep his secrets in line." He gestured toward Hale. "Him." Hale thrashed in the chair, muffled screams vibrating through the room. Amara staggered back. "My father died when I was a child." A soft, humorless laugh. "No, Amara, your father disappeared. And the wrong people want his bloodline erased." She tried to speak, but her throat tightened. "Why would anyone?" He cut her off gently. "Because you inherited something they want." He nodded at her pocket, where the locket burned again. "Open it." "I can't." "Now you can." His voice dropped. "Your blood unlocked it." Her stomach twisted. Whose blood was on it? But John Doe didn't answer. He simply slid a small knife across the floor toward her feet. Not a threat, an invitation. Cut his restraints. John Doe said softly, "If you believe he's a victim." Hale screamed behind the tape, shaking his head violently. "Or," John Doe continued, "leave him here with me, and I'll tell you everything." Her hands trembled. Sweat crawled down her spine. She didn't know which man was lying. She didn't know which man her mother had feared. She didn't know which one held the truth about her past. But she knew one thing. Whichever choice she made, there would be no return. She turned toward Hale. Hale sobbed behind the tape. She turned toward John Doe. John Doe watched her with calm, expectant certainty, as though the choice was already made. Her fingers hovered over the locket. "Who are you really?" she whispered. John Doe finally answered. "I'm the reason your father disappeared." The room spun. Hale screamed. The lights flickered. John Doe reached into his pocket. And the moment Amara saw what he pulled out, she realized the investigation that would follow would tear Westmore Medical apart. Because what he held wasn't a weapon. It was a photograph. Her father, John Doe, standing together, smiling, as if they had never been enemies at all. Outside, sirens wailed. Someone had alerted security. John Doe looked at her one last time. "It's time you choose a side, Amara. And when you do, the world will know who you really are." He pressed the photograph into her hand. Then the lights went out. When they flickered back on, he was gone. Hale remained tied to the chair, sobbing. And the photograph burned in Amara's trembling fingers. Her father, John Doe, a brotherhood she never knew existed, a legacy she never asked for, a crime she didn't yet understand. But the real question, the one that echoed through her mind as security guards ran toward her, was far darker than the mystery itself. If John Doe wasn't her father, then who was the man her mother warned her about? The police sealed off the East Wing long after John Doe vanished. But Mara barely remembered the officers tugging Hale out of the chair, or the detective firing questions at her like bullets. Her mind was stuck on one thing, the photograph he gave her. It didn't lie. Her father was smiling in it, standing beside John Doe like comrades, not strangers. But the newspaper that morning insisted the body recently pulled from the river was her father, missing for 17 years. One truth contradicted another. Someone was lying. But who? Back in her apartment, Amara stared at the photo until her eyes blurred. Her fingers traced a younger version of her father, the same gentle smile she remembered as a child. Nothing like the hollow water log face on the front page. Then she noticed something she hadn't before. The background, behind John Doe and her father, was a building with boarded windows and vines swallowing the brick. A rusted metal plaque was nailed to the wall. Westmore Psychiatric Annex, closed 1991. Her stomach dropped. That annex wasn't just abandoned. It was the older wing of this very hospital. The one where John Doe had taken her. The one her mother always refused to talk about. The one where someone had been hidden. A sudden knock jolted her, so hard she nearly dropped the photo. 3 short taps. A pause. 2 more. The old emergency code for nurses entering quarantine rooms. No one should know that. She approached the door, heartbeat rattling her ribs. "Who is it?" A familiar voice answered. "Amara, it's Detective Rowan Maddox. Please open the door." She peeked through the peephole. Maddox stood alone, hands visible, expression unsettled, not predatory. She cracked the door. "Detective? It's barely 6 a.m. I know." His voice came out tight. "But something happened. Something you need to see." Her breath hitched. "John Doe?" His jaw flexed. "We have a match. We know who he is, or at least who he used to be." She stepped aside. Against instinct, she let him in. Maddox sat at her table, unfolding a single printed document, like he was defusing a bomb. "Fingerprint reconstruction gave us a partial match," he said. "It was buried in an old sealed federal case." He slid the paper toward her. "Name, Dorian Hale." Her mouth went dry. "Hale as in—" "Yes," he said. "Leonard Hale's older brother." Everything inside her twisted. She had known the doctor for 3 years. He never once mentioned an older brother. And this man, this Dorian, carried a brand on his hand with the same symbol her father once possessed. "What was he charged with?" she whispered. Maddox hesitated. "Dorian Hale disappeared before trial. The file is barely legible after all the redactions, but from what I could gather—" He tapped the paper. "Your father was involved." She felt her blood turn to ice. "How?" "That's the problem." Maddox rubbed his temples. "Every page about him is blacked out. But both men, your father and Dorian, were under federal surveillance. Whatever they were part was extremely classified." Dorian's words echoed in her memory. "I'm the reason your father disappeared." Maddox leaned forward. "Amara, this man isn't just dangerous. He's trained. He knows this hospital better than the people who run it. And he chose you for a reason." Her chest tightened. "You think I'm involved?" "I think," he said slowly, "that you're the only one he trusts." The room felt too small suddenly, too quiet, too watched. Then Maddox reached into his coat. Her body tensed, but he only pulled out an evidence bag. Inside it was something small and metallic. A necklace clasp. Her necklace clasp. Her locket. "No," she whispered. "That was in my jacket pocket." "It was found," Maddox said softly, "in the morgue, on top of your father's body." The room vibrated around her. Her legs nearly gave out. How did her locket appear on a corpse she never touched? She hadn't opened her jacket pocket since yesterday. Dorian, he had taken it. He had returned it. He had placed it on her father's body. Or on the body they claimed was her father. But the real twist was worse. The locket was sealed. Again. The hidden compartment she had opened last night was closed. And something else was inside. A small strip of paper. Her fingers shook as she unfolded it. 3 words, written in rushed, jagged handwriting. "He isn't me." Maddox frowned. "What does that mean?" Amara's voice barely surfaced. "That body isn't my father." She looked at him. "And Dorian wants me to prove it." She returned to the hospital hours later under the guise of collecting her suspended ID badge. Maddox escorted her, and Dr. Hale was nowhere in sight. He had taken emergency leave. But Amara noticed something. Every staff member watched her with wide, frightened eyes. She wasn't a nurse anymore. She was a girl connected to the escaped patient. She was the reason Hale was tied to a chair. She was part of something no one understood. While Maddox went to speak with administration, she slipped into the elevator. The moored button blinked under her thumb. When the doors opened, the hallway smelled sterile, cold, wrong. The body was still there, covered, tagged. Amara locked the door behind her and approached it slowly. Her reflection trembled on the metal table. She braced herself, lifted the sheet. She gasped. It was him, her father's face. But not exactly. The angles were off. The nose too narrow. The hairline slightly wrong, the jaw less familiar. The body was meant to look like him, meant to be found, meant to close the case. But it wasn't him. Her breath rasped out. The locket message was true. Amara. She spun. Dorian stood against the wall of the dark morgue, shadows clinging to him like smoke. She almost screamed, but he raised his hands calmly. I didn't come to hurt you. How did you get in? She whispered. The same way they used to. His eyes flicked to the vents. Your father knew every weakness in this hospital. She backed away. Why did you put my locket on this body? To see if you'd look closer. He glanced at the corpse. I needed you to know the truth before they buried the evidence. She trembled. What truth? He stepped closer, voice low, steady. That man isn't your father, but someone wants you to think he is. Why? For the same reason they erased everything about him, and me. He pointed to the locket. Because your father and I were part of something that wasn't supposed to exist. Her voice cracked. What were you? His eyes softened in a way that frightened her more than anger would have. We were the reason the psychiatric annex closed. We were the reason the federal government buried an entire decade of records. We were the reason people died. She couldn't breathe. And now, he whispered, they want you, Amara, because you're the only person left who can unlock what your father hid. I don't know anything, she said. But you will, Dorian replied. Your father made sure of it. Before she could respond, footsteps thundered outside the morgue door. Maddox's voice. Amara, are you in there? Dorian's expression changed instantly. Urgency and something dangerously close to fear. You have to choose right now, he said. If you open that door, you'll never see the truth again. What truth? She whispered. He pressed something cold and metallic into her hand. A second key. The annex wasn't shut down because of scandal, he murmured. It was shut down because of what your father discovered inside. She stared at him, heart pounding. What did he discover? Dorian leaned in. The answer left his lips barely above a breath. A patient who was never supposed to be human. The door handle rattled violently. Amara, open the door now. But she couldn't move. Her hand closed around the key. Her mind shattered with one horrifying realization. Her father didn't disappear because he was running. He disappeared because he found something they killed to protect. And Dorian was the last surviving witness. Everything went silent. Then Dorian whispered the final question, one that sank into her bones. Are you ready to learn what your father turned you into? The door crashed open. Lights exploded. Hands grabbed her shoulders. And Dorian was gone. Again, the morgue burst into chaos the moment Maddox and two officers stormed through the door. Amara didn't resist as they pulled her away from the metal table, their hands firm, their voices firm but uneasy. Maddox kept glancing around the room, as if expecting Dorian to reappear from the shadows. He didn't. Not this time. Amara, Maddox said urgently, what happened? Did he hurt you? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Not because she was afraid, but because she didn't know what version of the truth Maddox was prepared to believe. The false corpse, the secret annex, Dorian's terrifying whisper. Are you ready to learn what your father turned you into? She gripped the new key Dorian had placed into her palm moments before. Its teeth were jagged, strangely shaped, nothing like a standard hospital key. Maddox noticed her closed fist, but didn't comment. Not yet. He scanned the room one last time, gun drawn. He was here. I can feel it. Amara swallowed. Detective? Who do you think Dorian is? Whoever he is, Maddox said darkly. He's dangerous, and we are running out of time to stop him. But when she looked into Maddox's eyes, she saw something he didn't want her to notice. Confusion, fear, and a knowledge he wasn't sharing. The same kind of knowledge Dorian seemed to breathe. As they escorted her away, she glanced at the corpse one last time. A lie were in her father's face. And she realized the real reason Dorian had brought her there. Not to scare her, not to manipulate her, but to prove that someone inside this hospital, someone with power, wanted to bury her father's real fate, and bury her with him. They put her in a private interview room instead of a holding cell. A kindness or a trap? Maddox paced the length of the small gray space, like a caged animal. Finally, he stopped and faced her. "You need to tell me what happened," he said. "All of it." She met his gaze. "Will you believe me? Try me?" So she did. She told him everything. Finding the false body, the message hidden in the locket, Dorian appearing in the shadows. She didn't mention the new key. She couldn't. Not yet. Maddox listened, jaw ticking, hands on his hips. When she finished, he didn't speak for several beats. Then, "I believe you about the body." Amara blinked. "You do?" He nodded. "The measurements don't match the old missing person report. I checked the dental record myself. Whoever that corpse is, it's not your father." She released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "But," Maddox added quietly, "I don't believe Dorian Hale is trying to help you." Her chest tightened. "Why not?" "Because," he said, sliding a folder across the table, "we found this." Amara opened it. A photograph stared back. A grainy image of Dorian Hale, taken decades ago. Younger, sharper, standing beside another man. Her father. They weren't smiling. They were holding down a patient. A patient thrashing violently on a gurney. A patient whose skin was gray, whose eyes were too wide, whose mouth was twisted unnaturally. A patient who didn't look entirely human. Amara's pulse spiraled. "This is what those sealed records mentioned." Maddox said softly, "Your father and Dorian were part of an experimental behavioral program in the annex. Something went wrong. Horribly wrong." She forced air into her lungs. "What happened to the patient?" Maddox closed the folder firmly. "No one knows. The annex was shut down within 24 hours. The entire staff was reassigned. Every record sealed. And my father disappeared." Maddox nodded. "Yes. And Dorian vanished days later." Amara stared at the photograph. At that moment frozen in time. The terror in the patient's eyes. Her father's rigid posture, that Dorian's expression. Calm, analytical, like he wasn't restraining the patient, but studying them. "Detective," she whispered, "what were they doing in that annex?" He exhaled. Whatever it wasn't medicine. Later that night, they released her. Technically, she hadn't done anything illegal, though the hospital suspended her indefinitely. Reporters staked out the building. Maddox snuck her through a maintenance exit. "Go home," he said. "Rest." But she couldn't. She didn't go home. She went back to the only place that mattered, the Westmore Psychiatric Annex. The abandoned wing of the hospital. The one in the photo. The one the key belonged to. She slipped through the chain-link fence, her phone flashlight trembling in her grip. The annex loomed ahead, a rotting brick carcass swallowed by vines. Boards sealed the windows but left gaps, dark cuts on a dead building. She approached the metal door, rust flaking beneath her fingertips. She pulled out the key. It was warm, as if it recognized the lock. The teeth fit perfectly. The door groaned open. Inside, the air was thick with dust, mold, and something older, something metallic. She stepped into the darkness. Her light cut through a long corridor lined with peeling paint and broken gurneys. Faded words on the wall read, "Research Unit. Authorized personnel only." She swallowed hard. Her father had walked these halls. So had Dorian. Farther in, she found a room with scattered papers still stuck to clipboards, curled from age. She lifted one. Her father's initials scribbled in the corner. A patient profile. Subject 07, severe cognitive distortions unclassified, psychological deterioration, physiological anomalies. Unexplained, requires restraint at all times, do not allow prolonged direct eye contact. Her throat tightened. A second document. This one marked Incident Report. She flipped it over. Words jumped out in jagged, frantic handwriting. The patient learned faster than expected. They mimic emotions but do not feel them. We cannot sedate them. We cannot predict them. The doctor believes they're evolving. Hale disagrees. Cole wants more tests. We are losing control. Her heart stopped. That last line. If Subject 07 bonds with anyone, it will be with her. Her. She staggered back. Her father had written that. But why? Then the air shifted. Every hair on her arm stood. Someone was behind her. She spun. Her flashlight beam landed on a figure standing in the far corner of the annex hallway. Dorian. He stepped forward, face ghost pale in the flashlight's halo. I told you not to come alone. Her breath caught. What was Subject 7? His expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes shifted. Not what? He said. Who? She backed away. Tell me? You already know. No, she whispered. I don't. He stepped closer. Slow. Deliberate. You felt it your whole life. The instincts you can't explain. The fear your mother lived with. The reason she kept your father's secrets buried. She shook her head violently. No. Subject 7, Dorian said quietly, was a child. She froze. Her throat closed. He didn't stop. A child your father hid before the government could finish what they started. A chill spread through her bones. He hid that child so well, Dorian whispered, that she grew up believing she was normal. She stumbled back, shaking. Stop. He reached into his coat, pulled out a photograph. He handed it to her. It was the patient picture from the file, but younger, smaller. A little girl with wide, frightened eyes that looked exactly like hers. Her knees buckled. Dorian caught her before she hit the floor. Your father didn't turn you into anything, he murmured. He saved you from them. Amara stared at him, trembling. Subject 7 was me? Yes. Her heartbeat stuttered into silence. And then he added, voice barely audible, and they know you're alive. The annex lights flickered. Something moved in the shadows behind Dorian. A metallic click. A silhouette rising from the darkness. Not Maddox. Not Hale. Someone else. Dorian's eyes widened. Amara, run. She turned just as a blinding floodlight snapped on. A voice thundered through a loudspeaker. Subject located. Armed figures stepped out of the darkness. The floor vibrated with their steps. Amara's breath shattered into pieces. Dorian grabbed her hand. We're out of time. She looked at him, panic strangling her voice. Who are they? His answer chilled her soul. The ones your father died trying to stop. The floodlight swung toward her, burning hot and white, and as alarm screamed through the annex, a single question echoed in her mind. If she was Subject 7, what had she been created to do? The courtroom felt like it was holding its breath. Teresa stayed seated, spine straight, heart pounding as the footage replayed. Her humiliation echoing through the speakers, Morales towering over her in the recording, while the undercover patient watched silently. Now, months later, the truth was no longer whispered behind office doors. It was projected across a massive courtroom screen. Teresa's attorney stood. Ms. Knight, after this incident, did you fear retaliation? Yes, she whispered, because Dr. Morales always made sure everyone knew he could destroy careers. Morales smirked, but the confidence was thinning. His eyes flicked around the room, toward the jury, the reporters, the silent owner who watched from his wheelchair. The judge nodded. Call your next witness. Dr. Isaac Rowan, the former head of internal investigations, walked in, calm, composed, a man who seemed immune to chaos. Teresa studied him, unsure what version of him would walk on the stand today. The quiet ally who once warned her about the danger inside a hospital, or the investigator forced to protect the institution that had been rotting behind closed doors. He swore in, Dr. Rowan. The prosecutor said, You reviewed the internal complaint Nurse Knight submitted. What did you find? Isaac nodded slowly. That it was altered after she filed it. The courtroom erupted with gasps. And who altered it? The prosecutor pressed. He shook his head. Not her. The logins were manipulated, and someone inside administration intended to discredit her. Morales' jaw tightened. The prosecutor continued, Doctor, is there any evidence connecting Dr. Morales to the sabotage? Isaac inhaled, and for a moment, just a moment, every eye locked onto him. Yes, he said. A ripple went through the room. He had administrative access. Isaac continued. He requested a private login route only senior physicians received. and his account accessed Ms. Knight's file minutes before HR viewed the altered version. Teresa's breath caught. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't protecting anyone. He was finally telling the truth. Morales shot up. "That's a lie. I never touched." His attorney pulled him down. "Sit down." The owner in the wheelchair closed his eyes. The weight of months of secret recording, undercover observing, and quiet suffering seemed to settle into his shoulders. The jury watched him. The man Morales mocked. The man he thought was powerless. Everything came full circle. After a tense deliberation, the jury returned. The courtroom buzzed. Reporters crowded forward. Teresa's hand shook, but she stayed steady. She deserved this moment. Not revenge, validation. The forewoman stood. "We find the defendant guilty on all charges." Morales collapsed into his chair as the courtroom exploded with noise. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted. His attorney whispered something that made him grip his head in both hands. But Teresa didn't look at him. She looked at the owner, the man who had quietly watched her struggle, seen her dignity stripped away, yet knew something about her strength that she hadn't known herself. He lifted a hand, small, frail, but full of meaning. A thank you, a nod at the truth finally breaking free. When the judge dismissed them, Isaac walked over. He didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't offer some cold apology wrapped in professionalism. He simply said, "Teresa, this hospital is going to change because of you." She didn't know whether to believe him. She didn't know if she could trust him. But in that moment, it didn't matter, because she had won something Morales could never steal again. Her voice, her dignity, her future. As she stepped outside the courthouse, cameras flashed in her direction. Microphones extended. Reporters shouted her name. The world wanted her story. For the first time, she didn't flinch. She lifted her chin to the sky, the evening sun warming her face, and let out a breath she had been holding for years. And in that moment, surrounded by noise, victory, and a justice she never thought she'd see, one question settled her heart. How many more voices had been silenced before someone finally fought back? She walked forward, letting the cameras capture her not as a victim, but as the woman who changed everything. The end.